What if I told you that paying a coffee farmer 2 times the commodity price for a microlot could actually leave them worse off than had they just sold everything into the commodity market? Pretty hard to believe, right? Well, not for long. I'm Carl from Cedar Alto, and this is Coffee Economics with Carl, and we're about to bust a myth. Let's dig right into this concept. First, what is a microlot? Let's define this broadly as the coffee of only one farm. So let's walk through a scenario. In a lot of cases, small-scale coffee farmers are poor. Let's specify this as resource poor, especially monetary resources. In specialty coffee consumption countries, one often hears about the suboptimal conditions in which a lot of coffee-producing families are living. So the natural logic would be that if they can be paid more, their situations will improve. So let's pay them more. Pay them more for the same product for doing nothing. That's not really logical and probably not sustainable. Let's pay them more for doing a better job for producing an extraordinary product, which it's worth. So a small farming family, given certain conditions, could potentially produce coffee of extraordinary quality. An importer, roaster, consumer could pay a price that's well above average for that extraordinary quality coffee. Consumers get extraordinary coffee, farmers get paid more, everything works. However, this isn't that simple. So you pay a good price for coffee. As we saw, if you're a consumer or roaster or even importer, just paying a good price for coffee is not enough. We have to make sure that this above average price is being transmitted to the farmer. If this happens, farmers make more money. Farmers make more money, world saved, right? Simple. Cause and effect, supply and demand, everything is at balance in the world and we can sleep well at night. I'm sorry to say that for anyone who's feeling good and sleeping well at night based on this logic, I'm about to ruin it. This sequence leaves out some very important questions that could change the equation entirely for the farmer that is supposed to be benefiting from this supply chain. How much coffee was purchased? What percentage of the harvest? Was this 1 bag of 100 produced? Was this 20 of 20 bags produced? If it wasn't the entire harvest, what happened to the rest? How often is this purchase being made? Is this a one-off purchase? Is this every year? Is it every harvest? Supposing we're thinking of one lot that was purchased at one time, how was that lot selected? Is this lot always received from the same producer? If there's a relationship between the buyer and the community or co-op, does that relationship extend to one particular farmer? Or if a buyer is looking for the best coffee, does the producer who offers the best coffee change every year? Every harvest is a little bit different. Just look at the Cup of Excellence. First place is very rarely going to be taken by the same farmer 2 years in a row. What commitment was made and upheld with the producer? What commitment does the buyer have to the producer? These commitments could range anywhere from a guaranteed purchase at a fixed price from this producer no matter what, to a buyer just taking what they need from whoever makes the best coffee at a price that's above commodity market whenever it is that they need coffee. So let's look at how this normally works for the producer. Let's say that they're in harvest. That's a producer for you. There are these 3 bags of parchment. Maybe this is a week or 2 weeks worth of picking. This is going to their co-op or wherever their coffee is being consolidated, most likely in a town near their farm. They're going to be sending coffee or bringing it themselves every 1 or 2 weeks about. If this is a small farm with a pretty tight cash flow structure, this is almost always the case that they're bringing in coffee in very small increments to free up cash to be able to keep paying pickers and keep the operation going. So every week or 2 for about 3 months, maybe more, maybe less, depending on what you are. But the point is, smaller amounts of coffee are going to be turned in several or many times during the course of the harvest. If these lots are available to be offered as microlots to buyers, they're probably going to some kind of co-op or other organization that's collecting. But these co-ops aren't just going to keep these in inventory like this was Continental Terminals or something where you could just look at a catalog and these lots are going to be there until they're sold. No, these co-ops in a lot of cases, just because of local cost of capital and their operating structures, they need to turn over inventory quite frequently, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe up to 4 weeks. It's going to depend on each case, but that's more or less the range that I often see. So let's say this is a cupping table. We've got 6 samples here. These are going to be available only for a very short window of 2 to 4 weeks. A producer needs to get paid immediately when this coffee is dry, so they don't have the capacity in a lot of cases to be able to send samples to potential buyers or hold on to coffee for buyers to show up at their small town during harvest and take a look at these. At this co-op, however, they may have a short window in which to send samples to exporters, to importers, to roasters. They are going to be hosting visits during the harvest and shortly thereafter. While they do have parchment coffee on hand, people are always coming through, especially groups of roasters cupping these coffees, whatever's available. A lot of times going to several different co-ops in one town, finding the coffees that they need. This buyer might come to this town. Let's say this buyer is this spoon here, going to be coming in and cupping maybe once per harvest. How many buyers are coming through every harvest? That might depend a lot on the location, how easy or difficult it is to access, as well as the reputation, safety conditions. For example, Pitalito Huila is full of coffee buyers all harvest because it's kind of a capital of that sort of thing and lot separation. Whereas a lot of other towns, especially in more war-torn parts of Colombia, they're not going to be receiving as many visitors and therefore are not going to have the same likelihood of getting each and every microlot purchase during the very short window in which it's available. So say these 2 or 4 weeks pass and no buyers come, or buyers come, they pick out what they want. The rest, in most cases, it's going straight to the soup pot. So this is going to get mixed up with everything else and then sent off to commercial buyers, exporters, importers, other intermediaries, whoever it is. Sometimes they're going to be separate. This has cup quality, clean cup, above average cup than everything else. Sometimes not. Again, going to depend on the organization that's doing the collecting. But in any case, after this happens, these lots are going to be aggregated and there's no way to keep them separate for quality and market them as single farm microlots anymore. So whatever financial incentive may have been available to producers, that ends abruptly when this aggregation happens. So this, like most of what we've talked about in this series, becomes a numbers game. So what's the probability that of all the samples that are put on a cupping table in front of a buyer who comes through town once a year, what's the probability for a farmer that theirs is going to be chosen above all the others? Say there are 6 samples on this cupping table, 1 is going to be chosen. 1 in 6 probability that any given farmer's coffee is going to be chosen. There's a 17% chance that it's going to be picked up, potentially for a much better price, and an 83% chance that it's just going to end up in a soup pot, regardless of what quality it may or may not have had. And how many buyers are coming through during that window in which that farmer's microlot is in inventory, available to be purchased and not yet aggregated. Maybe they're going to be 2 during that 2-week period. So these odds just double, so now we're at 33% odds that this particular lot is going to be picked up. So what does this normally look like? The coffee hunter hunts, moves around town to town, likely in a old Instagram-friendly 4-wheel drive, stops in at cups at all the co-ops in one town, in one region, wherever they're going through. Maybe there's certain relationships and stability with certain co-ops, but the idea is to find the best coffee wherever it may lie, right? So they're going to cup something that they really love. They're falling in love with this one coffee. They love that coffee so much, they're going to pay quite a good price for it. And there will be farm visits, photos, many selfies, hugs, and the coffee farmer will depart with their newly acquired single farm microlot. Seems like a pretty wholesome experience. However, we need to consider what it costs the farmer to produce the quality that this coffee hunter loves so much. How much of the harvest is that coffee hunter going to take with them? Where is this farmer going to be selling the remainder of the coffee if that one buyer didn't take all of it, and at what price? Most likely the commodity price. So is that one sale at a very high price of a portion of the harvest worth investing more in producing the entire harvest that's going to be sold at commodity price? Of course, the answer is going to be different in every single case. Some farmers may have enough recognition and buyers lined up to sell their entire harvest at specialty premiums. In the vast majority of the cases that I see, small-scale subsistence farmers do not have this access, and it's really a lottery as to whether their coffee is going to come out exceptional and whether that exceptional coffee is going to end up getting picked up versus all the other options that are on cupping tables when buyers are coming through. While these direct relationships may imply a much more profitable sale for producers some of the time, they can be vulnerable supply chains if mutual commitment is not ensured. As we've seen in other videos, supply chains have risks. Coffee production has risk. Running a roastery or coffee shop, as we see especially right now, has risk. Sometimes supply doesn't match up perfectly with demand. Sometimes production costs rise. Sometimes currency exchange rates fluctuate. So who absorbs the risk and takes the loss when anything goes wrong? In these situations, the buyer's needs don't always match up with the farmer's production. This could and often does lead to a situation where buyer's needs are met, but the farmer's needs are not completely met because they're left to bear a risk that they're not equipped to handle. What happens when there's a demand disruption, when coffee shops shut down? If a roaster made a commitment to a producer to take 40 bags, which is their entire harvest, and then for some reason they're barely selling any coffee for 2 months, are they still going to be able to take those 40 bags and get the farmer paid on time? Maybe, maybe not. If not, and the farmer already incurred costs leading to a much higher than average cost of production per kilo, what are their options? Everyone wants the best. If the way you market roasted coffee or beverages is by having the absolute best, you're not going to take the second or third best. But what if the producer who made the best last year is making the fifth best this year? Are you going to pass over the best and buy the fifth best? The cost of producing exceptional coffee is without a doubt greater than the cost of producing mediocre coffee. So if the buyer needs 5 bags, the producer's making 20 bags, they might get an exceptionally high price for this, 12.5% of their harvest. What options do they have for the rest? I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If any additional questions come up, feel free to leave them in the comments. If there are any other topics that you'd like us to do a video on, leave them down there as well. If you find this information interesting or useful and want to keep up with future videos, please go ahead and subscribe. Thank you. Before I sign off here, you all know I represent Cedro Alto. We're a collective of small-scale coffee farmers in Colombia. In addition to making videos, my job is to find homes for all the coffees produced by our 160 members. We run our own export company here. We have spot coffees and more coming on the way pretty soon to North America, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. If you're interested in partnering with us to source coffees from one or more of the members of Cedro Alto, feel free to get in contact with me directly. My contact information is here in the video description.